"You're overreacting. My ex just paid for my flight so we can sit together." She said it while folding a lacy top I'd never seen before into her suitcase like she was describing the weather. Nothing about the words or the implications seemed to weigh on her. No guilt, no nervous stammer, just a casual shrug like I was the one making a scene for blinking twice. I didn't respond right away, just watched the way she carefully folded her clothes, how she made sure her perfume bottle was sealed tight, how she packed lingerie for a conference. I'd worked as an air traffic controller for 33 years. I used to reroute 6 planes in under a minute during thunderstorms while pilots barked through static, but somehow none of that trained me for this moment. Watching my wife pack seduction in silk and call it networking. She zipped the bag, stood up, and gave me the same smile she used to give when we first started dating, that little crooked corner lift like she knew something I didn't. "I'll be back Thursday. Don't wait up." Then came the lean-in kiss. I turned just slightly, just enough for her lips to land somewhere between my cheekbone and thin air. I pretended to check my watch. As soon as the door closed, I walked to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and logged into our airline rewards account. 5 minutes later, there it was. Flight 482, outbound to Denver, seat 14B, Ava R. And right next to her, 14A, reserved for Daniel M., her ex, the man she once told me was just a phase. Apparently the phase had a return ticket. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to, something about those seat numbers. Side by side, like a punchline to a joke I was tired of being part of. I screenshotted the itinerary, pulled up the seating chart, and started circling, not just their seats, but mine. My mental position, my calculations, the place I would stand when it all landed. And if you're still reading this, I'll be blunt. Most people don't subscribe, and 90% of the story gets listened to in silence. But if you want to see where this wreckage lands, subscribe. It's what keeps us from crashing the next one too soon. I dug deeper, checked her calendar sync. Nothing marked as conference, just a blank slate from Tuesday to Thursday. Convenient. I opened our shared Amazon account. She'd ordered a new phone case last week. Burgundy, leather, magnetic clasp, said it was for work meetings. The same meetings that somehow kept happening in hotel bars. She thought I was slow, that I spent my retirement reading manuals and tending to our hydrangeas because I lacked imagination. She mistook silence for submission. I was calm because I was calculating. She once told me I had a mind like a radar screen, always spinning, always tracking, always quiet. She said it like a compliment. Now I doubt she even remembers saying it, but I did, and I knew how to use it. The next step was small but surgical. I dug up an old contact, Carla M. Daniels' wife, the kind of woman who still wrote thank you cards and took Christmas photos with dogs and sweaters. We'd only met once, years ago, when she and Daniel came to Ava's birthday barbecue. She brought a bundt cake and left early. She didn't strike me as confrontational, which made her perfect. I found her email in an archived thread Ava had forwarded years back, a carpool plan from a PTA event. I crafted a message with the precision of a man who used to guide metal through clouds. Subject, your husband and mine, same flight, same row, same story. I attached the itinerary, highlighted the seat numbers in red, no threats, no explanation, just facts. Facts that don't lie, even when spouses do. Then I sat back, sipped my tea, and looked out the window. The hydrangeas were blooming. Funny how things flourish when you stop tending to the wrong roots. I once guided planes that were losing altitude one after another because of a faulty transponder signal. Every instinct in my body said panic, but I didn't. I zoomed out, tracked the data, adjusted patterns, moved pieces where they needed to be. This was no different. Ava had just left for the airport, suitcase wheels squeaking down the front walk like a toddler too excited to be quiet. She wore heels too high for TSA and a dress that had never once made an appearance in our marriage. But sure, a conference. I watched her from the upstairs window. She didn't look back. Most planes don't either. I opened my laptop and relogged into our Travel Points account. I already knew about seat 14B. That part wasn't new. But now I wanted patterns. Behavior. Recurrence. Daniel M. There it was. Seat 14A. Right next to hers. I clicked into the booking. The flight was listed under her email, but both seats had been purchased in one transaction. Paid using a card ending in 8024, not one of ours. I checked that card number against our bank statements. No match. So unless Ava suddenly picked up side work and got herself a new secret credit card, the answer was as clear as the seating chart. Daniel bought both, which made sense. Men in pursuit are always generous, right up until their lives implode. I opened another tab. Carla M. wasn't private on social media. She never had been. Her profile picture was a family beach photo, the kind that's staged just enough to make you wonder if anyone was actually having fun. Her latest post was from 2 days ago, a table set for 4, candles, burgundy wine. Caption, "Trust is everything." I studied that line, not just for what it said, but for what it revealed. Carla believed she had it, which meant she didn't know. Not really, not yet. And that's when I made the decision. No theatrics, no big email blast with a clickbait subject line, just 6 words. Subject, your husband and mine. Same flight, same row. Same story? Body, nothing but the itinerary. Seats circled in red, no threats, no speculation. I even removed my name from the signature. I clicked send, then I closed the laptop and stood in the center of the kitchen. I realized my hands were steady. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry. I was ready. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. That would come in its own time. This was about data, clarity, the kind of clarity people like Ava call cold because it doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't scream. I stepped into the garage. The shelf above the workbench held everything she thought I didn't notice. A forgotten hotel loyalty card, a conference badge with a different date than she told me, and a red notebook Ava always claimed was just for recipes. I'd never read it until now. Inside were handwritten notes, not love letters. Worse, plans. Daniel wants to leave her soon, said he can't stand Carla's micromanaging. I don't want to leave Neil until after the refinance. Need to book flight under conference cover next week. I stood there, the notebook slack in my hands, reading a chapter of my life written in someone else's hand. She wasn't just cheating, she was strategizing, planning financial timing, using my name, our house, our shared accounts as scaffolding for her affair. She thought I was asleep at the radar. She didn't realize I'd been logging every cloud on her horizon. Back inside, I checked my email, no reply from Carla yet. But I wasn't worried. When people are handed the truth like that, undeniable, quiet, surgical, they always respond. Eventually. That morning, she woke before the alarm. I heard her in the bathroom humming, while applying eyeliner like she was getting ready for a gala instead of a conference at a mid-tier hotel with frayed carpets and bad room service. The scent of her new perfume reached me before she did. Not the one she wore on our anniversary, not the one she packed for the last corporate offsite. This one was bold, spicy, unapologetically new. By the time she walked into the bedroom in that emerald dress, her heels clicking with intent, I was already dressed and nursing my second coffee. She twirled once in front of the mirror and adjusted her necklace. The emerald of the dress didn't match anything she owned, which made sense. She hadn't bought it for me. "Big meeting," she said, brushing imaginary lint off the front. "Might change things for me." I nodded slowly, eyes on her. "Do they know you're traveling with Daniel?" Her entire body stalled like I'd yanked the emergency brake on a speeding car. "What? I'm not—" She fumbled the words, then narrowed her eyes. "It's not like that." I reached over to the counter, picked up the printed itinerary I'd left face down and held it out. "Seats 14A and 14B. You booked them together. Paid from the same transaction, same departure, same arrival, same damn row." Her nostrils flared. "Jesus, Neil, you're being paranoid." "Maybe," I said, folding the paper neatly and slipping it back into the envelope. "Or maybe I just read better than you lie." I didn't shout, didn't accuse. That's what she wanted. Some excuse to spin this as my emotional instability. Give her a victim's alibi. No, I'd lived too long on cold logic to fall for heat. She walked away, muttering something about how this is why people can't be honest with their spouses anymore. I let her. Let her pretend the house she was leaving was the prison. Once I heard the front door close and the click of her suitcase wheels on the driveway, I opened my email. Carla still hadn't responded. No read receipt either. Maybe she was at work. Maybe she was busy building the life she thought she still had. Or maybe she was staring at the email, wondering if it was a prank or some cruel test, so I made sure it wouldn't be. I replied to my own message and attached the full itinerary. No commentary, no drama, just the facts. Then I circled the seats again. Bold red, this time 14A, 14B. Side by side. Added a short line. They board at 2:40 p.m., gate B6. If you want the truth, that's where it lands. I clicked send, then I walked into the kitchen, poured a fresh cup of coffee, and pulled out my tablet. No more digging. No more evidence. I had enough. I stared at the backyard through the window. Last summer, she planted lavender and called it our project. She never watered it after July. When the heat came, it died in silence. Fitting. I took one slow sip. The taste was bitter. So was everything now. But bitterness has its uses. It keeps you sharp, keeps you from swallowing the same poison twice. My phone buzzed, a calendar reminder. Ava flight departs, 2:40 p.m., right on schedule. I stood, grabbed the red notebook from the garage, and added one more entry to her recipe list. 3:17, final prep. She thinks it's a business trip. She's not wrong, it's just not hers. Then I closed the book and waited. The email came in quiet, like most life-changing things do. No fanfare, no all-caps subject line. Just, re, your husband, and mine. I was sitting at the dining table, dinner untouched in front of me. Something Ava had made last night, out of habit, maybe guilt. A casserole with 3 types of cheese and 0 sincerity. I opened the email and read it twice before blinking. Thank you for this. I'll be there when they land. That was it. No emotional monologue, no denial, no questions about, are you sure? Carla didn't need more proof. She just needed a push. And I'd given her one wrapped in a boarding pass and 2 seat numbers. I picked up my phone and sent the only thing she needed now. Gate B6, flight 482, arrives 8:15 p.m. She replied 1 minute later. Copy. It hit harder than any apology Ava could ever muster. One word, and yet it said, I see it, I know it, and I'm not backing down. Then a pause, 3 dots blinking. Another message came through. Tell me one thing. Has this been going on long? I looked at the screen. Thought about how to answer. I could have said, since he added her on LinkedIn last year, since she suddenly needed emotional support from a man who once forgot her birthday, since she started sleeping in silky nightgowns for Zoom meetings, but I didn't. I typed, long enough for her to forget who bought her last 3 flights. Carla didn't reply, not with words, but 15 minutes later, I refreshed her profile. The post, the one with the wine glasses and the caption, Trust is Everything, was gone. Not archived, not replaced, just gone. Deleted like the fantasy it had been. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling, the fan above spinning lazy circles like a countdown. Ava always said the fan squeaked, but I never heard it. Now it felt deafening. I opened the departure folder again, rechecked the hotel reservation. Daniel had used the same billing address he shared with Carla, bold, or maybe just sloppy. The reservation was for 2 nights. King bed. Anniversary package checked off for late checkout and champagne. I wondered if he picked that by mistake. Probably not. People like Daniel don't expect consequences. They expect indulgence. Their mistakes come dressed in white linens and chocolate-covered strawberries. I sent Carla one final email, no text. I wanted it to feel official. Subject: for your arrival, attachment, hotel reservation confirmation, time-stamped. Body: thought you might want this in hand in case they pretend they're just seatmates. No sign-off, no name, just the document. And I felt something strange, not relief, not pride, but alignment, like the pieces were clicking into place. Her seat next to his, my handoff to Carla, the hotel, the photos, the receipts, the lies that could no longer hide in recycled excuses. I didn't need to see what Carla would do. That wasn't my job anymore. I had pointed the radar. She'd chosen to fly into the storm. Ava once told me I was the calmest man she'd ever met. Said it like a compliment, as if calm was an accessory. She didn't understand that calm wasn't peace, it was readiness, especially when you're waiting for impact. She came downstairs like she was heading to prom, that emerald dress again, clinging to her like a lie too practiced to fail, hair curled, earrings catching the kitchen light, perfume drifting ahead of her like a warning shot. I was sitting at the table reading something I wasn't really reading, a man pretending to still be in the play long after the audience left. She clutched her overnight bag and slung her laptop case over her shoulder, new, leather, expensive. Something Daniel probably called a gift for your big opportunity. The straps were still stiff. She didn't make eye contact when she passed me. Don't wait up, she said casually, bending down to kiss my cheek. I tilted just enough for her lips to graze air. She didn't comment, just straightened her posture and walked toward the door, heels ticking like a metronome of infidelity. I followed her with my eyes, not my body. Just before the door closed behind her, I reached for my phone and snapped a photo of her from behind, the way the dress wrapped her spine, the height of the heels, that perfect silhouette she'd assembled for a man who wasn't me. She didn't even notice. I checked the time, 2:03 p.m., set an alarm for 8:10 p.m. Flight 482 would land at 8:15. I figured 5 minutes of anticipation would do me good. I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Departure, not a metaphor, just a clean collection of evidence, like any good tower log. Inside was everything: a PDF of the hotel reservation at the Sherwood Plaza, booked under Daniel's name. It included the upgrade request to the romance package, which offered late checkout, a complimentary bottle of champagne, and petals on the bed. Ava always said she hated cliches. I guess it depended on who ordered them. Below that, dinner reservation for 2 at Mortelli's, set for 9:30 p.m. One of those places with $45 scallops and candlelight that makes your conscience flicker. I called that afternoon, pretending to confirm the time, told the hostess I was Daniel's assistant. She didn't hesitate. Of course, sir. Romantic table by the window. We've added the anniversary cheesecake to the order just as requested. Perfect. The bill had gone to our joint account. Still, she must have thought I wouldn't check. Or maybe she counted on me seeing it and doing nothing. Either way, mistake. I printed the receipts one by one. The hotel, the dinner, the loyalty points statement. I had even found an Uber receipt from the last time she claimed she was at a team dinner. Drop off. Daniel's condo. Pickup. 4 hours later. She always came home with her makeup intact, a skill I used to admire. The printer hummed steadily, each page sliding out like a blade. I didn't staple them, just stacked them neatly. Ava once accused me of being too methodical. You treat arguments like flight plans, she'd snapped once, always trying to anticipate the crash instead of enjoying the ride. Crash prevention was literally my job. She just never believed I'd apply it to her. I stared at the printout. All the pieces, all the variables accounted for, and I whispered it, barely audible but still solid in the air. Final approach. The printer light blinked off. The room went still. I carried the stack to the living room, slid it into an envelope, and placed it on the mantel above the fireplace. Not for Ava, for me. A timestamp, a memorial, the moment before impact. At exactly 6:03 p.m., my phone lit up with a voicemail icon. One missed call, no number saved, but I knew. Carla. I put the glass down, untouched scotch, 2 fingers neat, and hit play. Her voice came through low, controlled, like a woman walking through fire on the balls of her feet. I'm at the airport, long-term parking. I'm not here to cause a scene, Neil. I'm not going to yell or cry or whatever she thinks is coming. I just want to look her in the eye, just once. The message ended without a goodbye. I sat there for a moment, letting the silence do what it does. Clarify. Strip everything down to signal and noise. I replied with a text. She'll see you, just don't speak until she does. It wasn't advice, it was strategy. Let Ava walk right into it. Let her recognize the face she never thought she'd have to see in real life. No performance, no warning, just presence. Then I opened my photo gallery, scrolled to the image I'd taken earlier, the back of Ava in that emerald dress, walking out the door with her bag and her confidence. A timestamp at the bottom, 1:58 p.m. I attached the photo to the next message. Can't miss her. She always dresses up for liars. Sent. I leaned back in my chair and finally poured the scotch over a single cube, let it swirl once, then took a sip, burned just enough to remind me I was still awake. Still here. People think revenge is heat, rage, chaos, but it isn't. Not when it's done right. Real revenge is cold, surgical, quiet enough to make someone hear their own heartbeat when it lands. Ava used to accuse me of being too still. It's like nothing ever gets to you, she'd said once, frustrated because I hadn't taken the bait during one of her passive-aggressive spirals. You just sit there with that blank look, like you're above it all. She was wrong. It's not that I'm above it, it's that I see it, every signal, every twitch, every pattern breaking. I don't overreact because I've already reacted. By the time the words leave her mouth, I've seen the scene 3 times from 3 angles. She never understood that kind of preparation. I checked the time, 6:21 p.m., gate B6, flight 482, scheduled to land in less than 2 hours. I imagined Carla now, waiting at arrivals, arms folded, expression flat, the kind of stillness that makes people nervous. No screaming, no shaking hands, just presence, the kind that speaks louder than accusation ever could. I wondered what Ava would do first. Freeze, laugh it off, try to hug her. She was always better at damage control than damage prevention. That was her flaw. And now it was going to show in 4K right there at the terminal. I took another sip. The phone stayed silent. No flight delayed alert. No made it safely text from Ava. Not that I expected one. She was the kind of woman who only communicated when it benefited her narrative, and right now she was too busy playing pretend with a man who bought her champagne and probably called her gorgeous like it meant something. I pulled the printed folder from the mantel and rechecked every page, one more time. Not because I doubted, because I didn't. Because this part, the pause before impact, is when most men flinch. Not me. I didn't flinch when I rerouted a 747 that lost power over 3 states. I didn't flinch when I told my son I couldn't come to his wedding because of an airspace lockdown, and I sure as hell wasn't going to flinch now. The phone buzzed once. A text from Carla. "Thank you, no matter what happens. Thank you." I didn't reply. Some things don't need acknowledgement. Some things just need landing gear down, wheels to tarmac, and an audience. Gate B6 was humming with that post-flight buzz, people half awake, half annoyed, wrestling carry-ons and blinking through jet lag, parents calling to their kids, announcements about lost items, nothing special, just another arrival zone built to cushion the weight of strangers returning to their lives. Except for Carla, she stood 10 feet from the sliding doors, just past the crowd, but directly in the line of sight. No sunglasses, no hat, no attempt to hide, just there. Still, like a statue planted in concrete, waiting for recognition to land harder than any plane ever could. She wore a navy coat and black boots, no makeup. Her arms were crossed like scaffolding for the cold, but her expression, flat, unreadable, was the real weapon. You could scan 1,000 faces and never pause on hers, unless you had something to fear. At 8:17 p.m., the glass door slid open. Ava came out first, hair perfect, laughing, that laugh, the bright one she used to save for inside jokes in late-night movies. She tossed it over her shoulder like a scarf. Daniel followed close behind, rolling her suitcase with one hand, his other nudging her playfully. Lovers fresh off a lie. She wasn't looking forward. Until she was. Until her eyes caught the shape that didn't belong in the usual blur of family reunions and business travelers. Until the laugh died in her throat like a note played off key. She slowed mid-step. Daniel bumped into her slightly, confused, still grinning, oblivious to the collapse in progress. Then he followed her gaze, and everything shifted. Carla didn't move, didn't blink. She held up a phone, arm steady like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. On the screen, the itinerary Neil had sent, the same one she'd stared at all week. Both names, both seats, red circles bleeding across the digital white like open wounds. Ava opened her mouth to speak, maybe explain, maybe deny, maybe ask why, but nothing came out. "Carla," she finally managed. One word, thin, brittle. "What do you—" Carla didn't flinch, didn't reply, just let the phone hover there between them, the evidence louder than any confrontation. Daniel let go of the suitcase handle. His hand dropped like a switch had been thrown inside him. He looked like a man just realizing he'd been walking into his own courtroom. Ava reached out, one hand rising like she could physically push the moment away. "Wait, this isn't—" But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. Not a random sighting, not a coincidence, not a misunderstanding at the gate. It was a trap. And Ava was standing squarely in the center of it, with designer heels and nowhere to run. A security officer nearby shifted his stance, half watching the tension swell like a prelude to shouting. But no one shouted. Carla didn't need to. She slowly lowered the phone and stepped forward, not to speak, not to slap, not to accuse, but to witness. To give Ava the moment she'd earned, face to face. Truth for truth. Daniel took a breath, then another. He looked at Carla, then at Ava, then at the floor. His jaw tightened. His voice, when it came, was barely audible. You told me she wouldn't know. Ava blinked, mouth half open, eyes darting like she was searching for a script, but there wasn't one. Not for this scene. Because Neil had written it. And this was her curtain call. Ava reached for Carla like it would somehow pull the moment backward. Her fingers twitched toward her arm, but Carla didn't move. Just stared at her with a levelness Ava couldn't match. No panic, no anger, just the unnerving calm of someone who had finally stopped pretending. I didn't come to scream, Carla said, her voice soft but sharp enough to cut through the airport murmur. I came to return this. She pulled an envelope from her coat pocket. Not crumpled, not torn, crisp, weighty, one of those old-school manila envelopes that always spells out either business or consequence. She pressed it into Ava's hand like it was hot. Ava hesitated, glancing down at it, then at Carla, like she was trying to decide which was more dangerous. Inside, a small stack of printed screenshots. Messages between Ava and Daniel. Not the romantic ones, but worse, the strategic ones. Hotel bookings. Schedule juggling. Petty remarks about their spouses like they were obstacles to manage, not people with breath and history. One message was time-stamped 4 hours after Ava told Neil she was working late. Ava's mouth twitched. There was also a photo, a grainy still from a keycard swipe at the Sherwood Plaza Hotel. Date and time clearly visible. Daniel's name under the digital access log. The camera had caught the curve of Ava's arm. Her purse strap slung exactly like it was now. Carla let the silence sit. Ava looked up, lips parting, but before a single syllable left her throat, Carla raised her hand, just enough to stop it. You sat beside your past, she said, voice low, steady, absolute, and destroyed your present. That line landed like a verdict, final, unshakable, with no jury left to sway. Then Carla stepped back, not fast, not dramatic, just done. Daniel moved reflexively, reaching for her like someone trying to pull a train car after the coupling snapped. Carla, wait, it's not like that. Please, just let me explain. But she didn't even blink in his direction, didn't break stride, didn't turn around. Daniel followed anyway, trailing behind her like a man chasing his own shadow, growing smaller with every step. His voice faded into the distance, pleading, explaining, begging. It didn't matter. Carla had already closed the chapter. He was just skimming the margins. Ava stood frozen in the middle of Gate B6, envelope in one hand, silence in the other. People passed her on both sides, travelers with somewhere to go, families reuniting, businessmen on phones. No one saw the collapse in her knees, the flush crawling up her neck, the way her fingers dug into the paper like it might anchor her to a reality she no longer controlled. She looked down again at the envelope. There was one more thing inside, a letter, written by hand, on white stationery, Neil's handwriting, precise, tight, methodical, like everything he did. She didn't open it, not yet. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what it would say, and exactly what it meant. The cab's headlights washed over the driveway like an accusation. Ava sat in the back, hands still clenched around the envelope as if it could warm her somehow. The driver said nothing when she didn't move for a few seconds. He just popped the trunk and stared straight ahead, probably used to seeing people come home ruined. She stepped out slowly, heels clicking across the concrete with less certainty than when she left. The same bag Daniel had rolled for her now dragged at her side like a burden she didn't remember packing. Her makeup was intact, barely, but her eyes had that hollow glaze, the kind that only settles when you finally realize no one's behind the curtain you've been performing in front of. The house was lit, but not warm. Porch light on, kitchen light glowing like an interrogation lamp. She could hear faint sizzle sounds from the backyard. She followed the smell. And there he was, Neil, standing at the grill like it was just another Tuesday, spatula in hand, charcoal burning low, the calmest man alive. She didn't speak at first, just watched him flip a steak like he was still retired, still married, still pretending. Then softly, as if the volume could soften the truth. Hey. He didn't look up, just nodded once, like you do when someone you used to know walks past you at the store and you can't remember why they feel familiar. You knew she'd be there, Ava said, voice thin. wrapped in that same disbelief she always wore when something didn't go her way. Neil turned the steak, let it hiss, then closed the grill lid. Only then did he speak, eyes still on the rising smoke. "I circled your seat," he said. "I never said whose." The words hit harder than any scream would have, because they weren't angry. They were true, sharp, clean, like the last step of surgery. Ava blinked, lips trembling now, chest stuttering like a heart trying to find its rhythm after free fall. Her eyes glazed. I, Neil, I didn't mean. She stopped. Even she didn't believe that. Tears began to push at the corners. One slipped. He didn't flinch, didn't comfort, didn't hand her a tissue. Instead, he reached to the side table by the grill and handed her a folder, a plain white folder with no label. She took it, unsure, and opened it. Inside, a letter from their bank, confirming the joint accounts had been split at 8 o'clock p.m. sharp, a notice from the credit card company, her name removed, his card frozen. All secondary accounts terminated. A stamped legal document, filed for divorce 8:16 p.m., 1 minute after her flight touched down. Ava stared at the date, then the time, then him. "You timed it," she said, almost a whisper. Neil looked at her for the first time. Not with rage, not with pity, just clarity. "I used to coordinate landing schedules for 7 terminals during peak traffic," he said. "Timing is the one thing I've never been wrong about." Ava opened her mouth again, reaching for anything. Anger, tears, the crumbling tower of justification she'd used for months. But nothing came out. She folded the folder closed, slowly, deliberately, and for the first time she looked small in the backyard they'd once planned to put a pool in, the space they'd hosted friends in, shared birthdays, now just charcoal smoke and silence. Neil turned back to the grill. "Do you want dinner?" he asked, flat, like he was offering to someone he owed nothing to. She shook her head once, almost childlike. He didn't respond, just opened the grill. The steak was done. So was everything else. Ava stood in the kitchen like a tourist in her own life. The overhead lights buzzed quietly, casting too much truth on the countertops. Her carry-on sat by the door, upright, silent, unopened, just like the conversation she was trying to start. She clutched the envelope Neil had given her, the weight of it unnatural, like it contained something heavier than paper. Her eyes flicked from the folder to him. He was by the sink, rinsing the grill tongs, casual in the way only someone truly done could be, calm, unbothered, like this had all already happened and she was just now catching up. "Neil," she said, her voice cracked from exhaustion or shame, maybe both. "Please, can we just talk?" He didn't turn around, just pointed lazily toward her suitcase. "The man who paid for that bag is probably more interested in conversation." That landed sharper than anything else he could have said. Because he didn't yell, he didn't list grievances, he just drew a perfect line between what was and what would never be again. Ava took a breath, sat down in the kitchen chair they'd picked out together 2 summers ago. Her knees gave out more than she sat. The wood creaked under her weight like even the furniture had stopped welcoming her. She looked up, waiting for more. Some final blowout, a monologue, a reason to cry harder. But Neil just grabbed his keys from the hook beside the door. He turned, looked at her one last time, not like a husband, not even like a stranger, but like a man evaluating damage after walking away from the wreckage. "You told me not to overreact," he said, his voice low, steady, the kind of steady that only comes after you've bled dry. He held her gaze. "I didn't." A pause, then, "I just landed you in the wreckage." He walked out before she could speak. The door clicked behind him like a final chapter slamming shut. No slamming drawers, no broken dishes, just absence. Ava sat there alone, with the envelope and the silence. She finally opened the last piece, the letter from Carla, handwritten in tight, beautiful script. There was only one line. "Next time you sit beside a man on a plane, make sure he's not someone else's destination." Ava folded the letter. The kitchen ticked in clock hand rhythm. No one called, no one came back. She was still packed for 2, but the seat beside her, permanently vacant.